Right, Shalom, Shalom. It's Brother Tazadak, hero of Israel. We'll start off by giving honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Now this breakdown is going to be on Revelation chapter 8. And like I said, I'm just going to get to the point, right? Just give you some precepts, right? Make it as short and sweet as possible, right? Giving honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, right? So let's get right into it. This is Revelation chapter 8 and verse 1. Right, because, right, these breakdowns, right, this is my attempt at making them as cohesive as possible, right? Actually, let's get that real quick. Cohesive. Cohesive. Adjective, right, from the online etymology dictionary. Right, it says of or causing a quality of adhering together, capable of sticking. Right, to cleave together. Right, because the job of the prophets, right, according to the book of Hosea, right, speaks about multiplying similitudes, right, through the ministry, which is of giving out this word, right? And so yeah, cohesive, right? Cleave together, right? Something that will stick, right? To give you, right, to the precepts, right? A good understanding, right? But anyways, Revelation, let's get right into it. Revelation chapter 8, verse 1. When he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. Right? Because right, the sixth seal is where? Revelation 6 and 12, right? 6 and 12, right? And I beheld, and when he had opened the sixth seal, lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, right? And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, and she is shaken of a mighty wind, right? So the sixth seal represents, right, the destruction, right, the ICBM missiles, right, the fall of America Babylon the Great, right, the stars of heaven, right, falling, right, like it says in verse 13, right, and ultimately that is leading to what? The seventh seal, right? So it says there was this silence in heaven about the space of half an hour, right? Revelation 8 and 2. And I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. Right? So the seventh seal, right, right, is leading, right, according to chapter 8, right, to the seventh trump. Right? The seven angels, right, and the seven trumpets, right, that represents what? Jacob's trouble, the seventh trumpet. Right, the seventh trumpet is also the seventh trouble, right? Seven, right, represents perfection, right? Like it says in, I believe, the book of Jeremiah, right, that all these things will come upon Babylon the Great in its perfection, right? Because she has said, I am, and I will see no travail, no sorrow, right? Meaning, there has been no actual conflict on America Babylon Great soil, right? Besides the internal wars like the Civil War, so on and so forth, right? But there hasn't been no outside, since America Babylon the Great's been established, an actual attack from an outside entity, right? So Revelation chapter 8 and verse 1, verse 2. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets, right? So the 7 trumpets, the 7 seals, 7 vials, right, is of the 7 plagues. That's essentially the same thing, right? So it says, verse right. So verse 2 says, and I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, to them were given 7 trumpets, right? Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 52, right? Because what does it say? In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed, right? Which let's go to let's see if I can get another precept. Right, so let's see if we can get this in Isaiah. Right. Right. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 47. Or actually, let's get second address. Right. What is it? Second address. Get that real quick. Slovakia. So we can get another precept, but I figure I gotta get right to the point. Right. Second address. What is it? Slovakia. Which is Slovakia. Try the what is that, 8 and right, second address, chapter 5 and verse 4. But if the Most High grant thee to live, thou shalt see after the third trumpet that the sun shall suddenly shine again in the night, and the moon thrice in the day, and blood shall drip out of the wood, and the stone shall give his voice, and the people shall be troubled. And even shall rule, whom they look not, for that dwell upon the earth, and the fowls shall take their flight away together. Right? And the Sodomite sea shall cast out fish, and make a noise in the night, which many have not known, but they shall all hear the voice thereof. Right? Which is talking about Revelation chapter 8. Right? Salakia. Let's get that real quick. So you have right, the last trump, which is the 7th trump. Salakia. Right. Then you have, like I read in second address, right, the third angel sounding, which is Revelation 8 and 10. Right. The Sodomite sea is a wormwood, right? The reference to wormwood also, right? But we'll get back to that in a second. But we're just gonna go on down verse by verse, right? So let's see. like I said, make this as cohesive as possible, right? Just give you the precepts that are needed, right? Sometimes, Spirit moves you to, kind of get another precept, but for the most part, I'll leave that for another time, right? Maybe I'll put in another lesson, right? So second address 5 and 4, right? 5 and 4, we'll revisit that. Right, so Revelation chapter 8 and verse 2, right? Because, like I said, right, the seventh trumpet represents when all things are completed, right? The Lord's return, the elect be magnified, right? Right, Jacob's trouble, right? Because you read about the seventh trump, which is in Revelation 11 and 15, right? Which coincides with the third woe, right? Jacob's trouble, right? The destruction, right? When all these things are completed, right? Which is the last trump, right? When all hell breaks loose, right? That's what it represents. Revelation 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And the seventh angel sounded. There were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his anointed. He shall reign forever and ever. Right? And the 24 elders which sat before God in their seats fell upon their faces and worshipped God, saying, we give thee thanks, O Lord God Almighty, which art and was and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power, and hast reigned. And the nations were angry that thy wrath is come, in the time of the dead, that they should be judged, that thou shouldest give reward to thy servants the prophets, right? The time of the dead, that they should be judged as 2/3 of our people, right? Because they choose willfully to remain in a dead state of mind, right? The reward given unto the prophets, right? Which is the kingdom of heaven, the iron rod, the crown of life, which all coincides with spiritual power, having the law, statute, commandments in the inward parts, right? And them that fear thy name, both small and great, shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth, right? So that's when you're going to see all these things come to pass, right? At the last trump, right? Be changed in the blink of an eye, right? The elect being glorified, right? Magnified in the eyes of all nations, right? But let's go back to verse 2, right? Revelation chapter 8 and verse 2. We'll go to verse 3, right? And another angel, Revelation 8 and 3, another angel came and stood at the altar, having a gold censer. There was given unto him much incense, that he should offer. Salakia. How I did that. Salakia, Satan is trying to stop the word. Right, so Revelation 8 and 3. Another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. Right, so let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 47, verse 7. Right, give you the precepts that you need, right, with the proper understanding. Isaiah 47:7. And thou sayest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst thou remember the latter end of it. Right, this is America Babylon the Great, right, which is why what is it? Let's see if I can get that real quick. I'm just gonna read that to you. Right, we can go to what was it, 18? Right, Revelation 18:7. How much she had glorified herself, lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I say the queen, and I am no widow, and I shall see no sorrow. Right, so this is what America Babylon Great thinks. Right, they will see no sorrow, they will see no travail. Right, there's another precept I wanted to get, but that's good enough for now. Right, so what's that? Revelation 18:7. Right, so we got 18:7. Right. Right, Revelation 18:7, and also what is it? Well, that's it for that. But Isaiah 47:8. Therefore, hear now this: Thou art given pleasures, that dwellest carelessly. Thou sayest in thy heart, I am and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things shall come unto thee in a moment, and one day, the loss of children and widowhood, they shall come upon thee, and thine perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, for a great abundance of thine enchantments. Right? Which is why, right, the number 7 represents perfection. The number 10 represents completion. Right? So in the perfect time, right, when, right, the Lord, right, causes, right, because this is the Lord's charagma at the end of the day, right? These are all the works of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, right, in order to fulfill the prophecies and His word, which will not be disannulled, right? So in the Isaiah 47 and right, and 9, right, and it's the perfect time, right? The seventh trouble, which is Jacob's trouble, right? So Isaiah 47:7, right? So that's dealing with the 7 angels and the 7 trumpets, right? Started at the right, the 7th, right? You touched on the 3rd, right? And we're gonna go, right, right, read on down, right? Revelation chapter 8 and verse 3. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer. There was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. Right? And this verse 4. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hands. Right? Because that these verses represent, right, the Lord, right, hearing the saints, right, the remnant of those, right, that will return to law, statutes, commandments, right, seek the prophecies of the Holy Bible, right, repent as Israelites, right, and ultimately that represents the Lord pleading our cause, right, in the day of destruction, right, because what does it say in the book of Luke, chapter 18? We're going to touch on that in a second, but as you can see, right, these are the prayers of the saints, right? The angel stood, right? There was given much incense, right? And the prayers went up to the Heavenly Father. And what does it say in verse 5? And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar, and cast it in the earth, into the earth, and there were voices and thunderings, lightnings, and earthquakes, right? Because ultimately, Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is going to plead the cause of his elect, right? Because there was a flood of water, and right, which was the first death. The second death is what? The Lord flooding the earth with fire, right? So the angel took the censer, filled it with fire into the altar, right? So you can get a visualization. Right? This is something something to this effect, right? which is so he took the censer, right? So this is the spiritual world, right? Here is the what is it, the fire, right, that was in the altar, right? The fire from the altar, that's the fire, right? Here's the altar, right? Here's the angel, right? Taking the censer, right? Uh, right? Filling it with fire, right? From the altar, right? And then he's gonna cast it down onto the earth, that fire that he took from the altar, right? That represents the Lord here in Israel and commanding the destruction to proceed, right? Which you read in the verse 6, right? Um, right? It starts, the angels sounded their trumpets, right? Um, so, right? Revelation chapter 8 and verse 6, and the seven angels which had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound, right? So let's go to Luke chapter 18 and verse 1, right? Luke 18 and 1, what does it say? And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought always to pray and not to faint, saying, there was in a city a judge which feared not God, neither regarded man, right? That's the Most High, right? Because he is the Most High, he doesn't fear God, right? And he is a judge, right? Because he's a judger of his creation, right? Luke 18:3, and there was a widow in that city. She came unto him, saying, avenge me of my adversaries. He would not for a while, but afterward he said within himself, though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because his widow troubleth me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. And the Lord said, hear what the unjust judge saith, and shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, that we bear along with them? Right? I tell you, he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Right? So there you go. Right? So the Lord is going to plead the cause of his elect. Right? And these are similitudes of these things transpiring. Right? Revelation chapter 8 and verse 7. What does it say? And the first angel sounded, there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. They were cast upon the earth, and a third part of the trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. Right? The hail and the fire represents the missiles. Right? So that's the first angel sounding. Right? Hail, fire mingled with blood. Right? Scriptures say that right, he had blood on his raiment. Right? That's talking about the great destruction that's going to happen in his return. Right? And you also read about the mountains being filled with the blood of the slain, right? The blood going up to the horse's bridle, right? It's because it's going to be a great, right, a time which has not been since the foundation of the earth, right? So it's going to be worse than the flood, right? They were cast upon, were worse than the flood of water, right? Why? Because it's going to be a flood of fire, right? Fire is a purifying agent, right? And they were cast upon the earth. The third part of trees burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up, right? Which is right. That's gonna right forward, right? The famine, right? The third woe, right? Revelation chapter 8 and verse 8. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. The third part of the sea became blood. Right? Which is what do you call it? The third part. right? Which is right, you have what's called the um let's see if I can get a preset for that. Slovakia. Um, this is Revelation 16 and 17. The great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. Great and great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Right. So the city being divided into three parts is what you have the sons of men, right, which are the other nations. You have the sons of the wicked, right, which are the Edomites. Then you have the sons of the power, which are the Israelites, Yasha'Allah, right? So the three parts, third part represents what the sons Esau's judgment, right? Because it's mostly going to be right. Uh, the destruction is going to be commanded. Why? Because his wickedness has reached unto the heavens, right? So this is the judgment is mainly right because for Esau, right? All of these other nations are going to be caught up in it, right? This is why it says third part of the trees burnt up, all green grass was burnt up, right? Because the judgment is mainly dealing with Esau, right? And his wickedness, right? The other nations as well, right? So Revelation chapter 8 and verse 8, and the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, right? The great mountain burning with fire is America Babylon the Great, right? The third part of the sea became blood, right? Which is right in the midst of right the destruction, the third woe, right? This is gonna affect mainly Esau because he's the one that he's we're under his system, under his rulership, his military, right? But all that is gonna be right done away with, right? And these other nations are gonna get caught up in all in this in the destruction as well, right? So the third part of the trees, or Salakia, um, the mountain burning with fire, right, being cast into the sea, meaning the downfall of America Babylon the Great. Third part of the sea becoming blood, right, is what, um, right, like it says, what does it say in verse 9? The third part of the creatures which were in the sea had life and died. The third part of the ships were destroyed, right? Talking about the great, right, destruction, right? The creatures in the sea dying, right? Is how many will be slain, right? Uh, right? And like I said, the other nations are going to be caught up in it, but this has to do with third part is Esau, right? Because this whole thing is about his judgment, right? Third part of the ships, right, which are his military, right, during the third woe, right? So this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, verse 25, right? Because all the wickedness on the earth leads back to what? To Rome, right? The revitalized Roman Empire and the same people that ran it, right? The Edomites, right? Um, Jeremiah 51 and 25. Behold, I am against thee, O destroyed mountain, saith the Lord, which destroys all the earth, right? Like it says in Revelation 8 and 8, the mountain burning with fire, right? Because it's going to be turned into a burnt mountain. Mountain represents strength, right? Like you say, this is my mountain. You're talking about an individual, right? You're talking about him being your strength, right? Or this is the mountain of Samaria, right? It's meaning it has strength, right? America is known as a mountain because it's one of the superpowers of the earth, right? Just like Russia. Russia is a mountain, right? The hills are countries like right? Indonesia, right? It's just smaller countries, right? That aren't so popular in as far as military might and weapons of warfare, right? And aren't as strong, right? So Jeremiah 51:26, they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith the Lord. Set ye up a standard in the land, blow the trumpet among the nations, prepare the nations against her, call together against her the kingdoms of Arat, Manai, Ashkenaz, appoint a captain against her, cause her horses to come up as the rough caterpillars. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes, right, which is Russia, captains thereof, and all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his dominion, right, his affiliates, right, Iran, right, China. Jeremiah 51:29, the land shall tremble in sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant, right? Um, right. Right. So America Babylon the Great is known as the destroying mountain. Right. So it says Jeremiah 51:25, says I will make thee a burnt mountain. Right. That's talking about the fall of America Babylon the Great. Right. This is the book of Ezekiel chapter 39 and verse 6. Ezekiel 39:6. And I will send a fire on Magog and among them that dwell carelessly in the isles, and they shall know that I am the Lord. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them pollute my holy name any more, and the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. Right? Behold, it is come, it is done, saith the Lord God, is the day whereof I have spoken. Right? Right. So this is talking about, right, the the Lord sending the judgment, right, upon the heathens as well, right, the last leg of Esau's kingdom, which is Gog, Magog, Russia, right, according to what is it, Revelation 13:2, the feet of the bear, right, which is the last leg of Esau's kingdom, right, and it also, right, the last leg of that image was what? The iron mixed with miry clay, right, which is represents America, Babylon the Great, and the EU, right, and it's being divided, right. So the last leg is ultimately the bear, right, which is Russia, right. The leg of the bear is Esau's last stand, right. He's going to send a fire on Magog, right, and all the other nations as well, right. So it says, right. So that's it for that, really. Revelation chapter 8 and verse 10. Right, because what does it say? Revelation 8 and 10, and the third angel sounded, there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon a third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. Right, the third trump, right, which is right. So when you read in Revelation 8 and 8, the third part of the sea becoming blood, it's talking about, right, the great bloodshed that's going to be upon, right, these other nations, mainly starting with Esau, right. So when you read down, right, Revelation 8 and 10, right, And the third angel sounded, there fell a great star from heaven, burning as a weary lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountain of the waters. Right? Verse 11, and the name of that star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Right? Talking about, right? So the creatures in the sea, right? Right, had life died, right? Third part of the ships, right? Because during destruction, right, it's gonna be a lot of destruction, right? The waters being turned to wormwood, right? Which coincides with right, the creatures of the sea dying, right? According to verse 9, right? So verse 10, right? Falling on the third part of the rivers and fountain of waters, right? That star is called wormwood, right? The word for right, right. If you research the disaster in Russia, the Chernobyl disaster in 1983, which was a nuclear disaster, right? That the word for that is Chernobyl, right? And the Russian, right, which is, it means contaminated, right? It means wormwood, right? So that's what that means, right? So Revelation chapter 8 and verse 12, and the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day showed not for a third part, and the night likewise, right? But let's revisit 2nd Esdras 5 and 4, right? This is 2nd Esdras 5 and 4, right? The Most High grant thee to live, thou shalt see after the third trumpet, that the sun shall suddenly shine again in the night, and the moon thrice in the day, and blood shall drop out of wood, and the stone shall give his voice, and the people shall be troubled. And even he shall rule whom they look not, for that dwell upon the earth, and the fowl shall take their flight away together, and the sodomite sea shall cast out fish, and make a noise in the night, which many have not known, but they shall all hear the voice thereof, right? And says, right, so the sodomite sea is, that's referencing, right, what's spoken of Revelation 8 and 11, right? Wormwood, starting with verse 9 through 11, right? Revelation 8 and 9 through 11, right? There shall be a confusion also in many places, and a fire shall be often sent out again, right? World War III. Wild beasts shall change the places, right? And menstruous women shall bring forth monsters, right? That's it for that, pretty much, right? So pretty much, right, menstruous woman shall bring forth monsters, right? Some camps say that this is talking about Jake, right? The Eve birthing these wild Jakes, right? That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about, right, in the midst of all this going on, right, fire being sent down often, right? World War III, right? Wild beasts changing their places, right? Meaning people are going to flee into the woods, right, for refuge. They're going to be devoured by wild beasts, and also wild beasts are going to, right, come down to the right, they're going to be scattered, right, because they're going to try to escape, right, the often fire being sent down, which is World War III, right? Menstruous woman shall bring forth monsters. Why? Because the water is going to be contaminated, the air, the skies are going to be darkened, right? So we're going to bring forth, right, premature babies, right, deformed babies because of the radiation, right? Um, right? So that's what it's talking about, right? Third trumpet, right? So Revelation chapter 8 and right, verse 12, verse 11. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter, right? So, you know, 2/3 of our people would get caught up in that as well, right? Because the third part, right, that's mainly talking about Esau, but Jake's gonna get caught up in that, right? You other nations, right? But the brunt of it is gonna be towards Esau, right? Um, right. So many men died of the waters because they were made bitter, right? Women, menstruous women will bring forth monsters, right? And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, right? And the day showed not for a third part of it, and the night likewise, right? Um, let's go to Isaiah um, chapter 60 and verse 1, right? Ultimately, right? Um, right? All hell's gonna break loose, right? Uh, 2/3 of our people are gonna be destroyed. America, Babylon the Great. But you're gonna have right chaos, right? You're gonna have right the skies being darkened, right, throughout the whole earth, right? The stars, right? Um, right, night and day. It's not gonna shine, right? It's not gonna seem like it's night and day, right? Because it's gonna be right through the mushroom clouds, right, darkening the skies, right? So what does it say? So day and night, it's not even gonna seem like there's right, moon, like daylight, nightlight, right? Isaiah chapter 6, 60 and verse 1, right? Rise, shine, for thy light is come, the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee, right? For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall rise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee, right? And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising, right? Because the elect are going to be given spiritual power, right? They're going to shine as the right, when they are given spiritual power, right? The Gentiles talking about right, um, right, the Gentiles, right, the isles, right, of right, the scattered, you know, is the remnant, Isaiah 11 and 11, right, which is why 2nd Esdras 13, right, some were brought as an offering, right, for Levites and priests, right, which is a remnant that are left throughout the whole earth, right. Um, so it's talking about them, right, kings to the brightness of thy rising. Isaiah 60 and 4, lift up thine eyes round about and see, all they gather themselves together. They come unto thee, thy sons shall come from afar, and thy daughters shall be nourished at thy side. Right? Then thou shalt see and flow together, thy heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. The voices of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. Right? This is talking about the other nations in verse 5, right? Because they're going to have to, right, go up 3 times a year, right, keep the Feast of Tabernacles, right, or they're going to be destroyed, right? They're going to bring offerings, right, gold, silver, their right, the goodly things, right, um, right. So that's the point right there, right? Jeremiah 49 and 7, right? What does Jeremiah 49 and 7 say? Right, so gross darkness will cover the people, right? But the elect are going to be, right, delivered, right? They're going to shine as the sun in their Father's kingdom, like it says in Matthew chapter 13. Right, you read about that in Daniel chapter. Let's get that real quick. So like yeah. Daniel chapter 12. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for children of thy people. There shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time, and at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. Many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Right? You read about that in Matthew chapter 13. Right? It's talking about the elect. Right? Right? Matthew 13 and 43. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who had ears to hear, let him hear. Right? So the elect are going to shine like the sun as a firmament. Right? Why? Because they're going to be magnified in the midst of all the nations. Right? And according to 2 Esdras chapter 13. Right? It's going to be that great multitude. Right? The 144,000. Right? And they're going to be part of that Armageddon, right? That final, stand of Esau and the Valley of Decision, right? And by that time, many will be destroyed, right? And World War III, right? So let's get another one. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter, I believe that's chapter 2, 3. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3 and verse 4. For though they be punished in the sight of men, yet their hope is full of immortality. And having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded. For God proved them, found the worthy for himself. As gold in the furnace has he tried them, and received them as a burnt offering. In the time of their visitation they shall shine, and run to and fro like sparks amongst the stubble. They shall judge the nations and have dominion over the people, and their Lord shall reign forever and ever. Right? It's talking about the elect. Because what does it say in Salakia? Let's get there real quick. Right, so all these things go hand in hand. Right? This is how you get an understanding, right, of the chain of events, right? And you must need that someone teach you, right? Which is why, right, we here at Hero Israel, we're not part of GMS, but we give them honors, right, because we learn from them, right? The Wadi Yahweh Shem Shai, right, for the elders, for our apostles and elders, right? Wisdom of Solomon 5 and verse 2. When they shall see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all they look for, right? The elect, when they're delivered up, taken up by the chariots, right? Wisdom of Solomon 5 and 15. But the righteous live forevermore. The reward also is with the Lord, and the care of them is with the Most High, right? Therefore they shall receive a glorious kingdom and a beautiful crown from the Lord's hand. For with this right hand shall he cover them, and with his arm he shall protect them. He shall take to them his jealousy for complete armor, and make the creature his weapon for the revenge of his enemies, right? Which is also, right, let's get that in, what the Paul the Apostle say, right? He said, get that real quick for you. Second Timothy chapter 4 and verse 8. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord the righteous judge shall give me at that day, not to me only, but unto them that love his appearing, right? Which is what's spoken of in Salakia, let's get that. Esdras, right? And we're gonna get Zechariah, Second Esdras chapter 2 and verse 41, right? Which you can precept that with Second Esdras 13, 5 and on down. The number of thy children whom thou longest for is fulfilled. Beseech the power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, that thy people which have been called from the beginning may be hallowed. I Ezra saw upon Mount Zion a great people, whom I could not number, and they all praised the Lord with songs. And in the midst of them there was a young man of high stature, taller than all the rest. And upon every one of their hands he set crowns, and was more upon their heads he set crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. Right? It's talking about right, Yahushai, right? When he crowns his elect, gives them spiritual power. But you got to have, right, first the trying of their faith, right? Like I read in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3, which coincides with what? Zechariah chapter 13 and verse 8. And it shall come to pass in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, and the third part shall be left therein. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakodash is my God, right? It's talking about what the elect, right? The remnant, right? Let's get this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 49 and verse 7. Right? So Revelation 8 and 12, right? The third part of the moon, right? It's talking about actual darkness. But what does it say? Revelation chapter 12, right? And verse 1, right? There appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars, right? The moon, the sun and the moon represents wisdom and understanding, right? And, right, which is why the third part is going to be darkened, right? Because Esau, right, his counsels are going to be brought to naught when, right, he sees that, right, that is the glory of his kingdom is diminished, is destroyed. Babylon the Great, right, and his armies, right, when he sees, right, the chariots, right, they're gonna be afraid, but still there's fight, like the scriptures say, right? But this, right, Revelation 8 and 12, right, his counsel is being brought to naught, right? Jeremiah 40 and 7 concerning Edom, thus saith the Lord of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman, right, which are called the so-called Germans, which are the basically they're the Amalekites, right? That's Amalek, right? His counsel perished from the prudent. Is there is their wisdom vanished, right? Which is why it says a third part, right? Sun was smitten, the moon, right? The sun and the moon, right? The stars, right? His knowledge, his wisdom and understanding, right? His counsel is going to be brought to naught, right? But it's also talking about darkness from the destruction. Jeremiah 49:8, flee ye, turn back, dwell deep, O inhabitants of Dedan, for I will bring the calamity Esau upon him, the time that I will visit him, right? If grape gatherers come unto thee, will they not leave some gleaning grapes? If thieves by night, they will destroy till they have enough, right? But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not, right? So, right, when you read third part of this, third part of that, it's talking about the sons of the wicked receiving their judgment, right? And right, the nations are going to be caught up in that judgment, right? 2/3 of our people, right? But that represents Esau, right? Is the end of his world, right? He's not going to be able to hide himself, right? Because he's the sign of Cain is the sign of leprosy, right? And with this truth going out, right, the wicked is being exposed, right? The Lord is right in due time gonna put out his right his wisdom, right, and then ultimately his counsel, right? Bashib Mashiach Yahushai, right? This is Revelation chapter 8. Lord willing, you're ratified, right? And 13. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. Right? So the first, right, the first trumpet, right, which is Revelation 8 and 7, right, second and third, right, and even the fourth, right. These are in chronological order, right, meaning they're going to happen according to their time, right. But once you get to the other three trumpets, right, it's going to show you what the angel showed John the Revelator, and I'll do that when I go over Revelation chapter 9, right? Through the power of Spirit Yahweh Shem Yahushai, right? It's the fifth trumpet, right? That's going to jump into World War III, right? The sixth trump, right? Is going to fast forward, to these latter days, to America, Babylon the Great being destroyed, right? So like I said, the seven trumpets, the seven vials, the seven seals, these are all, you can't follow all of them, because the book of Revelation jumps forward and backward into time, because, when I did the, the breakdown on, you can look that breakdown, Revelation chapter 6, you immediately have, Revelation 6 and 1, through 12, that's 1 through the 6th seal, and the 7th seal is Revelation 8 and 1, so it's not about, okay, where the first seal is it coincides with the first trump, and the first vial, and then you go to the second trump, the second seal, and the second vial. That's not how it goes, It's precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, It's Revelation chapter 8 and 13, right? So like I said, right, Revelation 9 and 1, right, that's the fifth seal. I mean, Salakia, the fifth trump, but that's going to go, right, back in time, right? The sixth trump is what? Revelation 9 and 13, right? Which is the loosing of the angels, right? Right, the missiles again, right? The vision given about the missiles, right? To John the Revelator, right? Right. So that's with the sixth trumpet, right? The seventh trumpet is what? Right? When these things are at its perfection, right? Revelation 11 and 15, right? So there you have it. Revelation 8 and 13. And I beheld an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound, Bashem Masha Yahushai, right? So, Lord willing, you're ratified. It's Brother Yatazadak, hero of Israel. And I'd like to give double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Say Kwame Asherala, Bad Babal, Shalom.